Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for October 19th, 2023. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, very good. Let's start by introducing the board as our host for the evening. On my far left, please.
Gaspar Bimber.
Michael Donlin.
Richard Tripp.
Crystal Morin, Secretary.
Lynn Perkins, Chair.
Craig Corbett, Vice Chair.
Donald Burgess, member.
Jim Dietzel.
And we have Code Enforcement Officer Robert Mackey with us this evening, and our clerk Ginny Rios in the back taking the minutes for the evening. Before proceeding, please shut off all cell phones, iPhones, any other gadgets that could create a distraction of the proceedings. These proceedings are scheduled to terminate at 10 p.m. In the event of an emergency, please exit to the rear of the room and do not use the elevator. Someone will assist you, and we are audio-video recording these proceedings as well. So that being said, I'm going to call the first case up, which is Promised Land Survey representing McMaster Development, LLC, and that's case number 23-130.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Peliquin. How are you? Welcome back.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yep, for the record, my name is Tim Peliquin, a licensed land surveyor. My company is Promised Land Survey. Here representing McMaster Development, and next to me is, you might not, this is Steve of the McMaster twins,
Very
identical
good.
twins.
Welcome, Steve.
Good evening.
So McMaster owns the property, and McMaster Development owns the property. And I'm going to read the 5 points into the record, and then we can talk about it a little bit.
Very good. Thank you.
The variance will not be contrary to the public interest because within the locus of 8 Hillside Ave and part of the MHDR2 zoning district, there are many two-family and some multifamily properties with lots of comparable frontage and size, notably Ash Street, Hillside Ave, Everett Street, Jefferson Street, and High Street, when I'm talking about the locus. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because the new landowners of record will be able, I think I missed a word there, able to replace this existing mobile home with a new duplex two-family home, which would be noted as a betterment to the property. Substantial justice is done because there is a significant need for housing, particularly for the workforce, throughout southern New Hampshire, and this property is seemingly well-suited to provide some of this need for this within this area. The values of surrounding properties are not diminished because undoubtedly replacement of an aging mobile home with new quality construction of this proposed duplex will help property values increase in this locus/area. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship because largely with the need of affordable and good housing in Derry and throughout southern New Hampshire, by not granting this variance on an ideal property with municipal water and sewer and not allowing the landowner a reasonable return on investment considering land values, we see this as a hardship. The proposed use is a reasonable one because this request is reasonable in that a comparable zone citing MHDR, a duplex would be allowed use with municipal water and sewer, considering frontage and area. And then if the criteria in subparagraph A are not established, ... Other lots, even abutting, enjoy comparable multifamily uses, and this request is not out of the ordinary considering this unique property and the location and its proximity to the highway, citing new exit 4A and exit 4, as well as downtown for work and/or services. So that's our preamble or our points, trying to articulate why as Steve bought this aging mobile home, The idea would be to raise the home. And the best use and highest return on investment would be to construct a duplex. We talked about this, Steve and I. Obviously, he could build a single-family home there potentially in lieu of this, but when you consider the MHDR district, this would be an allowed use as a duplex. And then further, if looking at the neighborhood with some multifamily, even abutting and throughout, within the MHDR2 district, we see this as a reasonable request. And also, lastly, undoubtedly, you just have to watch a little bit of the news to understand, not currently, but New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire has a great need for housing, and this does represent an affordable housing and a good rental. And Steve, the idea for the McMasters is they would probably own this property, maintain it. Anybody that knows their work is as good a builder as I know. And so I feel the property is going to be well maintained thereafter and be a betterment to the neighborhood. So that's our case, and I'll pause and try to answer questions the board would have, or perhaps members of the public at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Burgess, this is your neighborhood, am I correct?
It is.
You wish to lead off with any questions? Not that you have to.
No, but I do have a couple of things, I guess. This, when I moved in 1999, was multifamily homes. About 5 years ago, the planning board and the town council decided it should be single-family homes, only because of the proliferation of multifamily homes, I think. So why is this, I'm wondering why you would go against what their wishes are at the moment, because they're trying to stop what you're trying to do.
I would suggest that 5 years ago, exit 4A was not in the equation, and all the construction that's going to happen with that. And also, post-COVID, the massive housing crisis that exists in the Northeast and kind of throughout, I don't know about throughout the nation, but certainly in the Northeast, particularly in New Hampshire, to bring in viable housing for the workers. So that has changed.
No, I don't. 5 years ago, they knew this exit 4A was going to come about, as far as I know.
They were just talking at
Yeah.
that point.
Oh,
though.
no, there was they've been talking about it for 30 years.
Yeah.
But they had been in the advanced planning stage at that time. So I think they were just making sure that this area of this side of the community didn't get overseeded with additional families. But that's about it for the moment.
When you talk about reasonable return and excessive return, and you're claiming this as reasonable versus what might be construed as excessive when you put it in light of Mr. Burgess's comments, you're introducing an idea of hardship and a social aspect that has nothing to do really with the geography of this parcel. So we're introducing an idea of hardship that isn't subsequent to what the statutes align as hardship. Can you?
You are allowed to point out a financial hardship, though, right, within?
Well,
So,
you can, yeah.
And my only point is the value of land has gone skyrocketing. And even to buy a piece of land with a mobile home costs a significant amount of money. And for them to build one of their custom beautiful single-family homes in that lot, it's going to be hard to comp that area for people to get loans and other things, I would suggest, unless it was a much smaller home. So the idea would be the best return on investment would be a duplex, and that's why I suggest what I did, especially considering the neighborhood and what I saw out there, and what Steve in particular next to me, wanted to do over the longer term, potentially have a good rental property that they could maintain. So that's the reason I put that in there, but it's a weak argument, I would agree, in those terms of hardship.
Yeah, so noting the deed transfer is in August, correct? This is, sometimes I can appreciate that struggle of hardship and trying to get reasonable return back. If you're a property owner who has been caught through the, as Mr. Burgess has pointed out, the change of ordinances and structure of the housing zones, right? But if you're going into this in August as a purchase and you know what you have there, how do you define that hardship? And that's where I'm wrestling with is, again, this isn't just caught up at the last minute or by surprise or through the evolving changes in the community. It's, I'm buying this, I know I'm going to tear it down. You know what you're getting into, and especially if you're as seasoned as I know these folks are.
Right. That is correct. So better case for the hardship is the need for affordable housing.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Down the line to my left, Mr. Obimba, Mr. Donlin.
I'm gonna wait until after Maggie.
Okay, good enough. Mr. Corbett, anything from you?
Nothing yet at this time.
And Mr. Dietzel. And Mrs.
Moran?
Moran, thank you.
I do not.
All right, and Mr. Tripp, anything from you?
Not at the present, thank you.
Okay, good enough. If there's nothing else, we'll go over to Mr. Mackey and get a staff.
Okay, yep, as we've determined, property is MH, medium-high density residential 2. Prior to that, it was medium-high density residential, which would allow for single families, 2 families, and multifamily being 3 or more units. So we wouldn't classify this as multifamily, this would be a 2-family. Again, that changed to MHDR2 back a number of years ago. Because as Mr. Burgess had pointed out, I think the town at that point had the idea was there was too much multifamily going in. That has turned around somewhat, just given the current status today, and we see a lot of development, not in this area, but in the new West Runningbrook zone and so forth, with all kinds of multifamily projects. So I think that sentiment's changed a little bit. Other than that, I just point out, I think as was already stated, the property is serviced by town water and sewer. And then the other thing you might notice on the plan that was provided is on the front setback, they're looking to use the average front setback. You'll note that the building is not set back 35 feet, but they are allowed to use the average. Basically, if you look at that building and go 300 feet to the right, 300 feet to the left, figure out the average, they can build to the average. And I think there's some calculations as to how that was arrived at on the plan set, so.
Yeah, and that's not something we see very often. I think the last time we may have talked about this was maybe Lane Road. Some of those houses up over there were just for board information, you take the average and, Mr. Mackey, why don't you finish that for me?
No, I mean, that was about it.
Okay, good enough.
It's just under 10,000 square feet, as you'll see from the plan, with 100 feet of frontage, so.
Okay. In the development regs, what's the stipulations? Do you happen to know offhand, Mr.
Hello?
Yes.
But you asked what is the question now? You
What
threw
is-
me off.
What is, in the land development regs in this area, what was the development size?
10,000,
10,000.
yes. And the only reason is just slightly, this is a 100 by 100 lot, but survey of today, sometimes things get a little smaller, a little bigger, it's close, but.
Okay. What's the size of the construction and the units that you're proposing on this?
Yep, I think I included a floor plan, did I not? I meant
And
to.
you may have, I haven't gotten there yet
did not.
myself, so.
I saw the exterior, but I did not see a floor plan.
Yeah. Well, Steve, do you know that answer? What the square footage per each unit is?
I emailed those to you.
I know.
Yeah, there's no dimension.
Okay.
We'll get
I
that
mean,
answer for you.
you do have a map in the back of the packet which shows the proposed duplex.
Yes, but we have a floor plan as well
Okay.
that Steve is looking up now, so we'll have that answer for you.
Okay. Mr. Donlin, you'd indicated that perhaps you might have some follow-up after Mr. Mackey's point. You have any questions at this point?
Yeah, I thought I had heard Mr. Peliquin reference that if it was still MHDR, not MHDR2, that it wouldn't require a variance. But I'm looking through my notes here, and I thought it was 10,000 per unit.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Water and
even
sewer.
Under MHDR, which would allow for two-family, it's 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit.
Above and beyond the two-family.
No,
Well,
that
it
would be
says-
for a one and two family. So a single would be 10,000, a duplex would be
20.
20,000.
Oh, I don't think
And then-
that's right. I think it's, well, okay, so oops, I can't argue with you.
No,
But
it's fine. For the record, we'll just go ahead.
I just think the way I read that regulation is it's 10,000 square feet for a single family or a duplex,
Okay.
but, or a one or two family. But beyond that, in the multifamily, then you have to start adding the 10,000.
Okay. Are we double checking that, Mr. Mackey? By chance, or?
I know I'm right, but,
Oh, that's fine, just,
all right, let's go. So MHDR, area and dimensional requirements, single-family detached and two-family dwellings. When served by both municipal water and municipal sewer, the minimum lot area required shall be 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit. We've always, I can only say we've interpreted that to mean you need 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit.
Okay.
So two units would require 20.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Any follow-up there? Mr. Tripp?
What's the front setback on the proposed dwelling?
14?
14? Is that what is required by the zoning regulations?
Again, the typical setback would be 35 feet, but there is a provision in our zoning ordinance that allows you to take an average of the structures within 300 feet of you, and you can build to that average. So if you look at the plan that was submitted, on the very back, you'll see under the frontage, on the right side of that, Mr. Peliquin gives you what the average setbacks are, and then comes up with the average, which was 11.1 feet.
Oh, there you go.
So,
And we pushed it back a little bit just for reasonableness of garage and yield.
Yeah. Well, as long as there's a reason, I guess that's acceptable. And I know you had mentioned this previously, but I hadn't followed it, so I had to follow up,
Gotcha.
to get some clarification. The drawing that you provided shows a number of sheds and decks and garages. Are those all going away?
Yes.
So the only building that is going to be on the lot will be the proposed duplex?
Yes, and a lot of nice grass.
So there's going to be one driveway shared?
I'm sorry?
Gonna be one
One
driveway
driveway shared,
shared.
yep, split. Mm-hmm. With garages for each unit. There'll be a drive-in garage, if I was to show you the floor plan, for each unit.
Each unit has one bay garages, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
And they're 1,300 square feet, by the way.
Essentially, places for 2 vehicles for each unit, one in the garage and one outside, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And to answer the earlier question, I apologize, 1,300 square feet per unit approximately.
All right, very good. Mr. Corbett?
Mr. Pelican, are these garages at the end of the 14? Is that what I'm looking at?
Yes,
Thank you.
that's correct. With the wall between them, it would have to be a firewall, as Mr. Mack would know, based on, yep,
Okay.
garage.
So how much setback, I'm sorry, can I follow up? How much setback would there be on the garages?
14 feet
14 feet?
to the property line. To the actual pavement, it's more like 28 feet.
Well, the reason I ask this is I don't see on your drawing where the garages are going to be placed.
Well, I guess, what you can see is the pavement, or the proposed pavement that is coming to each side of that garage. And it's coming straight in, right in the middle of the building. Yeah, you wanna? Sure. May I approach the bench?
Thank you.
So this is going to be the garage?
Like this.
Oh, so it's in the building?
I didn't include this.
Well,
That's the idea.
Thank you.
Whoops, it died on you. Mike. There we go. Oh, interesting.
Well, that clarifies things immensely.
I should have included that in the package. I know I intended to.
Say again?
I should have included that in the package. I intended to, the floor plan, which
Oh.
would have answered the 1,300 square feet and now the garage.
Yeah.
And the nice little units that are intended.
So can I ask what the living area is going to be
2860.
per
1,500 square
side?
feet, right?
1,300 square feet, but there's, 2 small bedrooms, I believe, and
3 small, a master and 2 small bedrooms.
you want to know how
Was
big
that
the living room
included
is?
somewhere in your package?
No.
With the living area? Oh, okay.
So-
1,300 square feet is what I can tell you. 1,329 square feet
So
as a
is
total living area is correct.
the 1,300 square feet, I'm sorry, and I know this is redundant, but I just want to make sure we're all clear. 1,300 square feet is the living space?
Yes.
Or is that with the garage?
No, you never
Is the
include the
living
garage.
space. Perfect. Mr. Tripp, you got that?
Thank you.
Very good.
First
thank
and
you.
second floor.
Got it. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Tripp?
Not presently.
Okay. And anybody down the right, Mr. Corbett?
Go on, Mr. Pelican, during the explanation, briefly touched on that a single-family house would also work here to help, to be able to rent out, kind of the same thing for the affordable housing. How much thought has gone into the single-family, and why not go with the single-family, where it would be allowed?
Considering the need for housing is really the crux of the answer. It's an opportunity for the owner to potentially build something that they could rent long-term as a 2-family, as opposed to try to build a single-family home there in a neighborhood that it has multifamily and a mixed use anyway. It would seem most prudent as a planning agent within there to do a 2-family. So that's why we're asking.
Well, understandably, to ask isn't a crime.
No, just curious, and single-family could always be rented. That was just where my thought went, but
Right,
appreciate the
single families are harder to, they're more expensive to rent out,
Yeah.
obviously. It's nearly double the cost.
Got it. Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Dietzel, Mr. Burgess, you all both all set?
Sir.
Okay. Very good. If everyone's all set, we can make a call to public for input. Of course, you understand the protocol, Mr. Pelican, that we give an opportunity if anyone speaks and for you to rebut That being the case, we'll post phone numbers for anybody who's remote that wishes to be included in this meeting, and we'll make the call to anyone who wishes to support this application. This would be your opportunity to come forward and be heard. And likewise, we have those numbers out there, Mr. Preventure.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right, and we're going to see those on the screen, or they are on the screen now.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yes, if you would, Mr. Corbett.
Anybody at home who wishes to dial in, you're going to dial 646-558-8656. Your meeting ID is 323-909-140, and then you'll press star 9 to raise your hand. If you're having technical issues, you'll dial 603-845-5585, and someone will help you.
All right, very good. So the call was made for anybody who wishes to support this application, and that includes anyone who is remote. Seeing no one rise for that call here. Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of this application, this would be your time to come forward as well. And that applies to anyone who is remote. And just press the star 9, we'll let you in. Mr. Preventure, seeing any gestures out there for anyone who wishes to be included?
Seeing none rise, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, very good, and likewise, we see no one come forward here in the room, so we've consider ourselves meeting the statutes for public input on this matter. And that being the case, if there's no other questions, we can take a motion to go into deliberation unless it's premature yet.
I'll make a motion to go into deliberative session.
And Mr. Burgess has that motion. We would need a second, please.
I'll second, oops,
No, you can.
I'll second that.
Mr. Tripp will take the second for going into deliberation, and so all in favor of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Anybody wish to start the conversation on this?
Now, excuse me. Going back to my original premises, it's just zoned for single-family. It's recent. I know in the past there was many in this area. But again, a single-family home would be wonderful in there. And I don't see the hardship of putting another, a duplex in.
Okay. Mr. Tripp?
I am a proponent of housing, since the COVID refugees need someplace to live too. I think that there's some warrant to this request. I like the idea that you're cleaning up some of the miscellaneous outbuildings here. I'm sure you'll probably be back to put more sheds up, but that's not the topic of tonight. I am inclined to say that this is a suitable request. I do notice that the building is going to be set back even farther from where it is now. You know, so that's a positive on this. I do wish you would have included the drawing, because that would have made things a little easier, but then we wouldn't have had anything to talk about. You know, so that's about all I have to say right now. Somebody else might, you know, pique my interest, that would let me speak again.
Very good. Mr. Corbett?
I'm having a tough time with it. Much like Mr. Tripp, I like that we're pushing it back, creating more frontage. I like the image that was provided. I did like how it was going to look, but I have a tough time going from, you know, an existing conforming structure where another, you know, a better conforming structure could work, and then instead putting it with something that's going to require the variance. That's where I'm stuck. I think a single family house, you know, I think an upgraded one still provides a need for people. I think it fits. I have a tough time going, you know, with a duplex on top of it, where, especially when it didn't have a historical, you know, multifamily history on the property before. To me, that does kind of blend in, that when you had it, somebody changes it, a code changes, I can see it that way. But kind of Mr. Burgess's point too, and granted 5 years has changed, but where it specifically went in to go away from this to now come back, I do recognize the need for the housing, but I just have a tough time with this one. I do think a single family house could work here.
Mrs. Moore?
So I agree with pretty much what everyone has said, but I am struggling also with the spirit of the ordinance where it so recently has been changed. And I feel it's a really good mix of multi and single. It's not, significantly just one or the other.
Okay. For me, I'm wrestling with this for two reasons. One is that historically, Derry has provided more workforce housing than the proportional communities around, and that doesn't absolve us from continuing that. But when I look at that basis of the need for housing in southern New Hampshire or New Hampshire, I also know that it can't continue to be dumped in two of the most southernmost counties in the state to provide what the central state government is looking for. But beyond that, I get a little concerned about trying to put an impact on here, not just as far as can you provide the housing, but the requirements for square footage per habitable or per dwelling unit concerns me. It seems like it's overloading this lot, but I can appreciate the mix that's been historic in this district, a mix of housing or different types of housing. But I also feel that this is, though you can put a housing unit there, I feel like it's over impacting the lot, and that for me kind of marries with the hardship idea. Seems like this is excessive, not the reasonable, which is the kind of the guideline that I always work from. So this one's not setting so well with me, but anyway, those are my thoughts on it. If there's no other follow-up from anyone else, we can structure a motion.
I have another question.
Mr. Tripp?
Are these going to be, two-bedroom units?
We're in deliberative.
They are two-bedroom, but we are in deliberative.
Oh, I'm sorry, all right.
Sorry.
He had said 2-bedroom plus a master.
2 bedrooms plus a master. So these are going to be 3-bedroom units. Oh, all right.
I think we also established the parking off of the garage, which is essentially 2 vehicles per unit, the capability of 2 per unit.
In addition to the garage, or?
Well, I asked the question, can you put one in the car and that leaves you more slot for another vehicle outside of each garage unit, so that was
If that-
affirmed.
If you had put another car in there, you put some of the bigger cars, trucks, they would be sitting in the street back end.
Yeah,
That's,
well, that's.
there's not
that's-
really 2 spots technically.
Yeah, that's kind of true, because a truck is 22, 24 feet long. Longer if you stick a snowplow on it, but likewise, cars nowadays are 16, 17 feet.
And you got 14.
These crossover vehicles are
Yep.
about 16, 17 feet, but anyway. Anything else, Mr. Burgess? Mr. Tripp, you all set?
I'm all set.
All right, well, let's structure the motion here. We got, subject to obtaining state and town permits and inspections, all motions structured in the affirmative. Are there any other desires that someone on the board would wish to implement as a condition of this motion?
I don't think so. It's serviced by town water and sewer. I don't necessarily see anything else that we'd.
Okay,
And the motion states 2 families, so.
got it. Okay. All right, if we're all set on structure of the motion, we can come out of deliberation.
Make that motion.
Mr.
second it.
Corbett makes the motion, come out of deliberation.
So moved. Second?
Did you already second it, Mr. Burgess?
Yeah, I think so.
Mr. Burgess seconded it already, Mr. Tripp, so we'll do that to Mr. Burgess. All in favor of coming out of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 23-130, Promise Land Survey, LLC, Timothy A. Peliquin, LLS, owner, McMaster Development, LLC, to grant a variance to the to the terms of Article 6, Section 165-45.1.a of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to allow the construction of a two-family dwelling on the property at 8 Hillside Ave, parcel ID 29050, zoned MHDR II as presented with the following conditions. We have 1, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections. That concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Burgess has a second.
And I did state LLS for Timothy A. Peliquin, and I believe it's LLC, that it was a typo. Is it LLS? Perfect, never mind.
All right, good enough. That motion's on the floor. I'll introduce a reading of the finding of fact, which is for the McMaster Development, case number 23-130. And the request for this is to convert the lot to a two-family developed parcel. The property is zoned MHDR2, and the lot is under 10,000 square feet. Are there any additions any board member would like to add to the finding of fact? Very good, seeing no gestures there. All in favor of moving the motion for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mr. Tripp, what say you?
I'm going to vote yes.
Very good. Mr. Corbett?
I'm going to vote no. I believe it goes against the spirit of the ordinance with the recent change and with the fact that a single-family house would work to suit the needs.
Very good. Mr. Burgess?
I'm going to vote no also. I don't think the spirit of the ordinance is observed. I don't see a hardship or, you build a single-family home, you're still going to get a profit. So I don't see where there's a problem with that. I don't think there's a hardship.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mrs. Moran?
Chair, I'm also going to vote no because of the spirit of the ordinance where it is a recent change.
Very good. The chair is voting no as well. I have a hard time, as I've described, with the hardship on this lot and how it's going to be, how it would be developed outside of the square foot ordinances as well. So obviously, your application's been denied by a vote of 4-1. Anybody aggrieved by this has 30 days to ask for reconsideration.
We appreciate the board's deliberation, and we respect your decision.
Very good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
LLC, Promised Land, LLS is his title. Under certification,
I'm going to ask probably every
it would switch between Promised Land and then right to his name. So that's why I thought the same thing at first, but that's like a certification.
in the middle of the motion.
Right. You get a gold star.
You want to run this?
What?
You want to run this one? Sure. Why don't you put Dawn? Why don't you point Dawn on?
So forever, I've never.
No, don't worry about it. All right.
I think that's speculative.
Can I have my gavel?
You may. All right. Chair is going to step down on the next case for an alternate.
I'll be sitting in as chair for this one. Mr. Donlin, would you please sit as a member of this case? Very much. So I will now call up Mr. Adam Stowell for case, sorry, let me drag this, case 23-131, requesting a special exemption, not a variance. So for the board to keep in mind, we are doing a special exception for this case. So when voting and when casting our vote, please remember that we're following the right criteria.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Use your easel?
Yes. And what we'll ask is before you're more than welcome to share everything with us. Before you do, we would ask that you just read your application into the record, the 9 questions that you answered, and then we'll allow you to elaborate. And then we'll ask you to pepper you with some questions, and then we'll go from there. All we
Absolutely.
ask that you just introduce yourself, your name and your address, and the floor is yours.
Excellent. Good evening. My name is Adam Stowell. I'm a resident of Derry for approximately 6 years now, at 241 Hampstead Road. I'm asking for a special exception tonight for the zoning of that residence. So as far as the 9 questions go, the application form has been completed. The complete abutters list has been attached, and the certified letters have been sent out to all my abutting neighbors. I have personally spoken with all my neighbors and have been given overwhelming support from all of them. So every one of them is fully on board with this and aware of what my intentions are with the property. The letter of explanation has been attached. You should each have a copy. Letter of owner authorizing applicant to file on owner's behalf. It should be not applicable because I am the owner. Filing fee of $100 has been submitted. Vicinity ownership map has been attached. Current
sorry.
recorded deed, with the help of Mr. Mackey, has been provided. 10 copies of the certified plot plan. I believe this is the one that I drafted myself. It's a rough rudimentary sketch, but gives the idea. No changes to the structure whatsoever. Everything will remain the same, with the exception of possibly a small sign under the 3-foot requirement.
So just before you go too much in, could you just read the 9 questions just for the record? Just
Of
so it
course.
can be
Oh, yeah,
read
my
in. Thank you, and then
apologies.
you can elaborate into everything.
Definitely, yep. All right. So the 10 copies of the plot plan have been attached, and below that, would you like me to read A through E?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Would you like me to read A through E after question 8?
Just where it starts, the applicant claims the dwelling, and just the questions that you answered here, just each question and answer. There's a lot of, it will not and corrects. And then once you read right through that one, the application for exception, then you will be good to go. If you don't have that with you, we can give you.
Okay, this one here?
I think the next page. Mr.
Oh,
Mackey.
yep, my apologies, got that right here?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so applicant Adam M. Stowell, I applied on 10/3/2023, a request for only such special exception uses as are specified in Part A above may be granted, provided by zoning board adjustment finds favorably for respect to each of the following conditions. 1, applicant claims the dwelling unit as his or her legal residence. 2, the residential use was established by the applicant prior to filing for the request for the special exception. It was established on March 31st, 2017. A proposed home business will not be injurious, noxious, or offensive to the neighborhood by any reason of emission of odor, flames, dust, smoke, vibration, noise, or other cause. It will not. The home business will be conducted within the residential structure or other existing structures and will not exceed 25% of the finished living area of the dwelling. That's correct. The home business will not change the residential character of the dwelling or the property. This is correct. Not more than 1 sign or other advertising device will be displayed on the property, and it will not exceed 3 square feet in surface area. This is correct, yes. Not more than 1 person not residing in the dwelling unit will be employed on the premises at the same time. Total number of non-resident employees is 0. Sufficient off-street parking will be provided for employees, clients, and customers where lot size permits. The parking will not be provided within 25 feet of the front lot line, nor within 10 feet of the side or rear lot line. Must provide a sketch showing parking. Yes. Not more than 1 home business will be conducted on the property. This is correct.
All right, thank you very much. And now the floor is yours to elaborate.
Excellent.
Everything.
Thank you. Yes, as I said, my name is Adam Stoll. I'm looking to start a small automotive service and sales business out of the detached garage on 241 Hampstead Road, my property. I have 20 years in automotive experience, and I'm looking to turn my hobby into a career. Basically, I have a reputation, or have built a reputation for classic Japanese vehicles in our local car community, and I'm looking to turn that into a specialty interest shop that will not change the property by any means, but will just allow me to have a commercial business on this property. It will also allow me to be closer to home, a Derry, New Hampshire employee, or have a business here in Derry, and provide more time for me and my family to be with my family. I have this poster board over here that just shows some of my previous work. This is somewhat of a portfolio. So as you can see, it's not, my plan is not to make it a large car dealership with flags and cars on the street or anything of the sort, but I would rely more on sales on the internet, word of mouth, things of that nature. So again, it is a specialty interest shop. It's just classic vehicles, and that's what I would be targeting.
Okay, so you had mentioned in the letter you had your special interest mainly in the classic Japanese vehicles. Is that really what you'd be focused on? Or, I'm sorry if this is I don't know how really to ask the question. So classic cars, clearly, and I'm just looking at the portfolio, definitely unique cars. I think I'm actually just answering my question out loud. The only one I can think of off the top of my head, right now where we have the garage, the photo here had the marked up photo. Is that just add the image to that, or is a sign currently existing today?
Correct. There is no sign currently. My graphic designer had just basically attached that there, superimposed it.
Okay.
So there are no signs on it whatsoever. It is currently a registered business. The name is already created and registered with the Secretary of State. And as you can see, I've already had a logo designed as well.
Then the only question I have at this time, then I'll hand it over to the board. About how many cars at a time are you going to be looking to sell at once? How many should we expect to see on the property, or what's your main goal with this?
I do not expect to have more than 12 to 15 cars on the property at one time. And as you can see in the sketch that I drew, there is ample parking. I can fit 3 cars in the garage, approximately 6 to 8 cars around or behind the garage as well.
Thank you. I'll turn this over. Start at my far right. Mr. Dietzel, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. Burgess?
12 to 15 cars is a lot on a shot, 0.62 acres, I think it is, as I recall. That's quite the number. Okay, other than that, are you going to be doing like oil changes and stuff?
I actually have a service agreement with a couple of local shops, so there will be no hazardous chemicals, waste on the property whatsoever. So there will be, it's more of a performance-oriented shop, so it's not necessarily just your regular oil change, quick lube,
Okay,
or
so
anything like that.
you're not going to be doing engine tune-up. Well, if you're going to do performance work, you're going to be doing tune-ups. But I mean, antifreeze, oil changes, stuff like that.
Those items are bound to happen in an automotive garage, definitely, but all of which would be disposed of properly.
Have you ways to diminish the hazardous material getting in the yard or in the grass?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, what are they?
Containers, oil change, bins, drums, everything is contained. I have a guy who collects all my waste oil, and he uses it for a waste oil heater.
Okay.
And any of the antifreeze I can actually dispose at a local AutoZone or, any other hazardous material company.
Okay. What are you going to use to clean up spills?
There are 2 different methods I use, one of which is an absorbent mat, and then you can dispose of that in your trash. And
Big
the other
mats.
one is, and the other one is Speedy Dry, classic.
Okay. What are you going to use? Winter's coming, so you're not going to have the doors open all the time. How are you
Correct.
going to exhaust the fumes out of your your building?
So I don't expect to have any noxious gases or hazardous fumes in the garage necessarily, but if I do, there is heat in the facility. I have already put propane heat in the garage, but there is a small exhaust fan in the garage, say if there were an engine running or exhaust fumes or anything like that.
Well, if you're gonna tune up a car, you're gonna have the engine run. If it's, 2 feet of snow out there, you're gonna be sitting in the garage.
More than likely, I would have the garage door open though, even if, on a winter's day.
I know my brother-in-law was a mechanic, and he was in the Navy, he's a CB, and he spent some time in Antarctica. He has doors open all the time.
Oh, yeah. You get used to it.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Before I kick it down, it might be a part of ignorance on my side. As you mentioned, performance work, would that be akin to like a loose custom exhausting, or am I thinking two separate types of business, basically?
You're on the right track. Loose Custom, they focus mainly on exhaust. And I would focus more on engine work and performance upgrades, suspension work, chassis work, things like that, appearance upgrades, things of that nature.
Thank you. Ms. Moran?
What is the size of the structure?
So the garage itself, I believe,
30 by 26?
yeah, 32 by 26, I believe, it is attached.
Thank you.
Half of which would be used for personal use, my wife and I park in there, and then half of it would be used for the business use.
For a New Hampshire dealer's license, you need 750 square feet.
Okay. There is, yes, there is some, there would be office space above the garage. There is an attic loft, so that would be where the office space would be.
Okay.
But yes, I'd be willing to adapt, the floor plan to meet the requirements of the New Hampshire dealer's license as well.
Mr. Tripp?
So you're going to be, the type of business will be sales primarily, and you'll also be doing performance work?
Sales, service, and performance work, yes. Most of the cars I actually build myself. All these cars are vehicles that I've built myself, and with the idea in mind that I'd sell them later on down the road, and that would be my ultimate goal.
Now, I believe you had mentioned that the service work would not be performed on-site?
Within my capabilities and, within reason, correct. There would be certain service work that would be done on-site, but in order to get a New Hampshire dealer's license, there has to be a service agreement for inspection stickers and things like that.
Sorry, I was distracted.
Oh, that's okay.
Could you repeat that?
Of course, yes. So within reason and within my capabilities is what would be done on the property. It's not going to be, what I was speaking earlier to is it's not going to be like a Jiffy Lube. I'm not just going to be doing oil changes. And if there is significant work that needs to be done, I have service agreements with 2 local shops as well, and they would be the ones who do my inspections and things like that.
All right.
My hand hurts.
Give us a trip.
Oh, I'm trying to formulate a question.
I'll let Mr. Donlin bounce one, and then we'll come right
Oh,
back.
go
How's
ahead.
that?
Okay, I do have a few questions. So that 12 to 15 vehicles you were referencing before, is that on top of your personal vehicles, your wife and yours vehicle?
Yes, my wife and I each have one personal use vehicle.
Okay, and what is your anticipation for your turnaround rate? Or, how do I say, how many cars a month do you anticipate selling?
So currently, as a private resident or citizen, I'm only allowed to sell 5 cars per year. And I'm hoping to be able to sell maybe 5 cars per month, something like that.
And will this be your primary job, like starting right away?
Not right away, but long-term, that's what I hope for. Yes, I currently do have a regular 9-to-5 job.
Okay, that leads me into your intended hours of operation then.
Right. So in order to qualify for a New Hampshire dealer's license, you have to have a facility that's open within a certain amount of times, 40 hours a week or just around 40 hours a week. So once the New Hampshire dealer's license would be approved, that would be the turning point where I would hopefully turn that into my full-time career.
Not to speak for Mr. Dolan, I think if he wasn't going there, I think I'm curious off his question, what would your proposed hours be? If this does turn into the full 40-hour week job or full-time job for you, what would you be looking for open hours, if you had to guess?
Yeah, normal business hours, maybe 8:30 to 5 or 8 to 4:30, around that time.
Would it be 5 days a week, 7 days a week?
5 days a week.
Thank you. Ms. Dolan, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I was going with that. And let me see.
You're required 37.5
Great.
a week.
Thank you.
Makes sense with the half-hour lunch break built in each day. Mr. Obimbo, before I go back to Mr. Tripp, do you have anything?
I have another question. I'm not a car salesman or car dealer, but I've always assumed, and I may be incorrect, that the display area for cars is part of the business. Now, you're saying that you're going to have 12 to 15 cars. I would think that that would take a considerable area. Now, you don't consider that to be part of your business?
I considered the garage itself to be the physical structure of the business, and that's how I interpreted it as square footage. I think also it may be misinterpreted as a classic, like a normal car dealership where, you know, you'd be driving up Route 28 and you would see 30 cars down a line.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly what I would be doing. I'd be advertising my cars online and relying on special interest customers looking for classic Japanese vehicles.
No, because you do understand that this is still a residential area,
I do.
you know, and I don't see a lot of people here, and we haven't got to the point where people are either supportive or opposing it. But 12 to 15 cars seems a bit too much.
Can I ask what you feel is a reasonable amount of cars?
Well, I know people that have 7 cars on their property, but then they have a lot of people living there. You know, so the cars aren't there all the time. They are there at night, but during the day, you know, they're not, you know, I don't know whether the word is correct, an eyesore, you know. But like I said, 12 to 15 cars, like Mr. Burgess said, you know, does seem a bit excessive. But, you know, if you're a car dealer,
Mr. Tripp, if I may interrupt, I have a number in mind.
say again?
I said, if I may interrupt, I have a number in mind. I'm not sure how the rest of the board feels, but how would you feel with about 6 cars at a time?
Okay. Now, if there is a possibility where my wife or I may be driving one of the vehicles or 2 of the vehicles, that would be part of the business. So would that fall into, did you say 6 cars?
Yes.
Would that fall into the 6-car requirement, or would I still be 2 personal use vehicles and then 6 business vehicles?
I would be thinking 6 business vehicles in this situation, mainly and only because to me, it's still a lot. We've had a few actual car dealerships in town where we've kind of limited it to 10.
Okay.
And that's with a very large parking lot. While you do have, it looks like substantial amount of space kind of around into the back of the garage. To me, just looking at it, I would feel more comfortable. I mean, I see the 3 fit right along the side. You know, still probably put 1 or 2 in the garage, 1 or 2 in front. I think, to me, that 6 just feels like a more comfortable number. You know, Mr. Tripp's point, people driving by, that it doesn't necessarily jump out too much, but would that be something that would seem,
That seems reasonable to me.
well, board, you know, we'll discuss ourselves, see if you guys like
Yeah,
the
well,
number. I felt that was a little
it
better.
doesn't appear that, you know, from the pictures that we saw, that looks like there's foliage and stuff around the property that probably obscures most of the cars that would be parked there. Would you agree with that?
I would, yes. From behind the garage, yes, there is sufficient foliage that would obstruct the view from all my surrounding neighbors.
So, and you were saying that you anticipate a significant amount of your advertising is going to be not so much on-site, but more internet.
Yes, I agree. 100% of my advertising would be all on the internet. This isn't the typical dealership where you just pop in and look for a commuter car for your child or something like that.
Yeah, that's where I was heading, and that if someone wanted to come and look at the cars, would they make an appointment, or would they just drive by and stop in?
Any customer would be welcome either way.
Oh,
So if they wanted to make an appointment, they're absolutely welcome to. If they wanted to pop in, my business hours would be posted on my door.
He's kind of, to have a dealer's
Yeah.
license, you're kind of stuck with being open certain hours or for certain hours.
all right.
I have a question.
I'll quit then.
How do you intend on displaying the cars for sale? I know you said they mostly like on the parking lot, but will any be forward facing to the road, or will they all be as they're pictured?
They would all be as they're pictured right now. These are personal vehicles right there in that picture, and they wouldn't be parked any further or closer to the road than they currently are in that picture.
Okay.
Mr. Obemba?
How far is that first car in this picture from the main street?
Are we looking at the black car?
Yeah.
I haven't taken specific measurements, so anything I say would basically be an approximation, but I would say that could be anywhere from 75 to 100 feet from the road.
And how do you get these vehicles on to your site? Do you have a truckload dropping them off, and how do you get them there? I'm trying to see, if we have a tow truck dropping or picking up, and you have 16, we've rectified that to 6 to 8. I was having issues with having 16 vehicles, say, on site, and then you have a tow truck coming to pick up or drop off another vehicle, whether that will cause a public safety issue on that street, because it seems pretty close to the street if you look at the length of the truck.
Of course, that's a great question. And actually, in that photo, you can't see it, but there is my truck and my personal trailer are parked behind the garage currently. So you're not able to see them from this photo, but they are parked on the side of the garage and behind it. So I have a flat car trailer, and then I have an SUV that's able to pull it as well.
So you use your trailer to bring the cars
Correct,
into? Okay.
yes.
And I think I missed part of it. Do you get the cars at auction, or where do you typically?
I would buy at auction, or there's also a dealer website that you can go on to and buy cars all over the country and have them shipped to your house. I wouldn't mind traveling to buy vehicles, and I would take my own truck and trailer. A couple of the cars I currently own, my wife and I have taken road trips to go buy in South Carolina, New York, New Jersey, so that would basically be what I'd be looking for.
Interesting. Could I
Yep, we'll give you one more, and then I'm going to bounce it over to Mr. Mackey.
Okay, well, I was gonna go to Mr. Mackey also.
Well, if you want to kick it there, I'll let you.
I have another
But
question.
I'll come back to you in a
I have
second.
something else to say. So the only thing behind the garage is that truck and the trailer?
Not currently, no. I have one car and a truck and a trailer behind the garage right
Okay,
now.
so what's gonna happen, with the spare parts? In other words, if you junk an engine,
Right.
where's it go? Does it go directly to the junkyard, or do you keep it?
So if it's, classified as junk, useless, not something that I would be using again in the future, I call a metal scrap guy to come and collect any of my metal scrap, which is actually my next door neighbor. And he's constantly running metal scrap. So anytime I have some extra scrap, he's right on top of it and wants to pick it up. So that way, he can collect on it. And then I win by getting a free service. Besides that, there is sufficient, that's not my neighbor. That's a different guy. But there is sufficient storage above the garage as well, where there's a loft that is the same square footage as the floor below, obviously. That would be where my office is, and it's also part storage, very sufficient part storage as well. So it would not be a junkyard by any means, and the property, as you see it, would only increase in, the way it looks.
And then I have Mr. Mackey. I was out there earlier today, and I'm wondering if you have an idea of the distance from the road to the garage. I'm thinking more than 100 feet, but that's just me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I did take the photos. There might be some pictures that might give you an idea. I'm guessing somewhere in that 75 to probably closer to 100, I would say.
That was a little more than that technically.
Yeah, could be a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty far down the road.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
down a hill too, so.
Right. I mean, obviously you can see it's back quite a bit further from the house itself, so.
Okay. Now, you want something with Mr. Mackey?
No, Mr. Backer, I was going to now give you a chance to join the party.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add. I think you've asked a lot of questions. Obviously, Hampstead Road, busy road, a little bit different circumstances than a couple of the others you've had like this. Appears to be pretty straight, though, either way, as far as the access and being able to see in or out for vehicles. As was brought out, were this to be approved, they'd need to have this state retail dealer's license that would come to my office for approval prior to him getting any sort of a license.
Something else.
Again, you touched on any of the environmental concerns and spill containment, things like that, so. And then lastly, I think I would, as you've already picked up on, I would suggest some sort of a limit on the number of vehicles, so.
I agree. One more thing, Mr. Mackey.
Yep.
He plans on having a sign on the garage, but he could also have one on the road, right?
Well, I think technically, the way the application reads, you're basically limited to one sign.
Fine, okay. That's what I wanted to make sure of.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I don't intend on putting any signage on the road.
Okay.
Thank you.
And, Mr. Tripp, before I bounce over to you, I have one more question. I'm going to go to Mr. Perkins, then I will come back your way. Mr. Stowell, the cars that are currently existing, I know that you said they're all personal use. Do you plan on keeping, I think it's about 6, 7 that we're looking at in the picture? Are they all going to remain on the property, or it's just going to be the 2 for you guys and then the 6 or
Those-
so that you'll sell?
Those would be cars that I would be prepping to sell and then turn over into investments to new vehicles.
Understood. Thank you. Mr. Perkins?
Yeah, I'm noticing by all the photos that you have, it doesn't look like you just limit your performance work to vehicles only. I see a motorcycle there. Is that more the nature of what you're doing?
Not necessarily, no. Since I have started a family, I gave up motorcycles. It's a lot more dangerous than it used to be, I feel, and it's not the right fit for my family currently, so I have since sold that motorcycle. I'm not saying that I won't ever own a motorcycle or ever work on a motorcycle, but it would not be my primary focus.
I'm not your mother. If you want to ride motorcycles, you feel free to do it. I just wondered, the extent of different vehicles that you're working on. And I guess Mr. Donlin hit on this earlier, the nature of what you're doing, which is going to performance work. Is it that you're going to buy vehicles, ordinary vehicles at an auction, bring them back, retune them, tool them up, whatever, to make them meet a certain performance criteria? And are your vehicle sales just isolated to that type of vehicle, or are you just generally buying any vehicle and putting it up for sale?
Not necessarily. I'm not sticking to just performance work.
Okay.
I like all types of different cars and trucks, so I don't want to, pigeonhole myself and say that this is the only type of thing I will be doing, because since my father, my brother, my grandfather, we've all been gearheads our entire lives. So I wouldn't limit myself to say that I would only do performance work on classic Japanese vehicles. It is my primary focus. If I did find a nice truck that I liked, I wouldn't mind buying a truck and then maybe selling that and buying a different truck. So, my interests are broad, but my primary focus would be classic cars and performance.
Okay. The upstairs of this, you've agreed or suggested that you would allow the upstairs to be the balance to meet the state requirements to be a dealer, and that is coming up with the square footage of 750 square feet. I'm noticing the garage looks like it's a little cooped up there. You have hip walls, I guess, because of the height of the roof relative to the garage door. Can you, number one, can you create that much space in order to meet the state standards to be a dealer? And number two, is what's there large enough to support what you need to do as far as occupancy and space up in that area?
So as far as what I would consider an office, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And then also, as we talked with Mr. Burgess, I would say for part storage, it could be split, say for part storage, a sitting area, and a desk to handle paperwork or title exchanges, anything like that.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Promise Mr. Tripp, and then I will get you, Mr. Allen. I don't want to
You're
keep him
right,
waiting
you
any
did.
longer.
Well, actually, I'm just wondering, the drawing that you provided, it doesn't show the setbacks on the lots, on the lot. How far back from the side do you estimate the garage to be?
From, how far is the garage from the roadway?
No, not from the roadway, from the side of the lot.
Side lot line.
Oh, so I believe that the lot plan is there, and it shows the structures on this page that shows the local tax maps.
Oh, well, there's no dimensions.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not quite aware of the dimensions. It seems as though the rear of my property is more of
I'm more interested in the side. How far is the garage from the side of the
Mr. Chair,
property?
may I ask why, since the garage isn't being built, it's already existing?
Well, I'm interested in, once again, he's been talking about 6 to 12 cars. No, 12 to 15 cars, but then that's been, brought down a little bit, but I'm just curious as to whether that would be used for storage also.
So if I may, I'm looking at the tax map, and I know it's not a specific measurement by any means, but it shows that my garage is almost exactly in the middle of the property. And if anything, my neighbor's barn is a little on my property, which is no issue to me. But I would say that it would be approximately 25 feet from the property line on the outermost wall of the garage.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Dahlman?
Thank you. What would be your long-term intentions for, say, like, fast forward a year or two from now, and this is as successful as you and we all hope it would be?
Great question, thank you. I obviously, like any business, hope to grow and expand. I would like to maintain the low overhead as a small startup company to be able to grow. Within a year or two, I would expect to still be on the property within the limits that any of you may grant tonight. But long-term, I'd say within 5 years or more, I would like to have a separate commercial property and grow my business where I can have more vehicles. And ideally, once I have the correct property and storage, I would like to run some sort of import business where I could import vehicles from other countries.
Thank you.
All right, does anybody else have anything at this time? Mr. Dietzel, you've been quiet?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
I have one more
Lauren.
question. Looking at the tax map, there are wetlands. Do you know how close they are to the garage by chance, just because of the different chemicals that are being used?
Absolutely, yes. So I would say that they're probably on the rear side of the garage, about 20 feet or so.
Okay. And what type of flooring is in the garage? Is it sealed?
It's a concrete floor and concrete foundation. It is not sealed that I know of.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Stowell. I think you fared well for the barrage of questions from us. At this time, I think if anybody else has anything, we are good to go to public input. So we'll start with those who are in support. Anybody at home who wishes to dial in, a number will pop up for you. Otherwise, you can listen, and it will be 646-558-8656. Your meeting ID is 323-909-140, and you'll press *9 to raise your hand. If you're having technical issues, you'll dial 845-5585. And at this time, we'll now ask anybody in the audience who's in support of this, would be your chance to come up and say a few words. Seeing no one rise, Mr. Preventure, anybody online?
Seeing none online, Mr. Chair.
This would also be the same opportunity. Anybody in the audience who wishes to come up in opposition, would be your chance. Seeing nobody rise.
Again, seeing none rise online.
We have nobody on the phone as well. Before I kind of give you anything to elaborate any further, a question I have, we did go over the hours Monday through Friday, roughly an 8:30 to 5 or an 8 to 4:30. We didn't discuss the weekends. Would you do appointments only, or how would you handle a Saturday and Sunday? I feel, not that I've been in cars shopping for a while, but I feel like that would be more of the opportunity to sell a car would be a weekend. How would you handle that?
Yes, exactly what you said. If somebody were only available on the weekend, which unfortunately is when most people are to buy cars, it would be by appointment only.
Okay, so if we were to structure this with a Monday through Friday of roughly 8:30 to 5 or 8 to 5, and then appointment only Saturday, Sunday, that would work?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you. Does anybody else have, Mr. Tripp?
I'm still a little vague on the number of cars that are going to be on the property. Is it safe to say that there's going to be, vehicles being stored there in addition to vehicles that are on display for sale?
Something that I might call a project. Yes, there could be some projects on the property, but I would respect your decision if anything you said there was a limit to what I could have for personal use or business use. That would be the line that I would draw, and I could also use many of my different resources to store cars elsewhere. If, say, I did exceed what the requirement was, I could always store cars off-site somewhere else.
Yeah, but the reason I asked the question is you had mentioned that currently you have your truck and a trailer behind the garage.
Correct.
Now, I don't know how much space there is behind the garage, but, this is why I brought up the question about vehicle storage. Is it something that would be possible to have vehicle storage and your truck and trailer and other stuff? Because do you anticipate having the display cars on the front of the building, the garage, and to the side, or just where would the display cars be positioned?
Exactly that. Yeah, the more attractive cars would be up front to display and, reflect positively on the business, and cars that may not be so show-worthy would be either behind the garage or in process in the garage, or like we had discussed, off-site. If it's not an active project, it may be stored off-site in another location.
So how many cars do you anticipate would be in the garage being worked on?
So currently, the garage can fit 3 vehicles comfortably with room to work around all of them. If I were to add a lift or anything like that, I could change that number to 4.
Do we want to make any type of limitation on how many cars are worked on, waiting for? I don't want to reach too far, but I don't want to forget anything.
No, I think that's a good question. So the number I was originally thinking kind of throughout there was 6. Listen to Mr. Sowell, and I think he kind of clarified it for us even better of 6 cars for business use. I think would be a number, if comfortable with him, that I would feel more comfortable with, overall.
Okay.
That'd be a.
I think that's a fair requirement, yes.
So
Thank you.
that would be a number that I would look at. I think it's a nice pullback from that 12 to 15.
And the 16, this 4, did you say 4 or 6?
6 for
6.
business use. So that would be for sale, for being worked on, or just anything that he would be doing with the
A
business. Would be
total
limit
of 4
6.
for
Not including the truck or
storage,
personal vehicles.
display, and being worked on. Is that correct?
6, yes.
6?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, are we still in the public input segment?
Nobody's, as far as the public input, no one spoke, but as far as asking questions, you can still ask.
Mr. Chairman,
This was,
he wanted 17 originally. I was wondering if we shouldn't do 6 to 8, just because. You know what I mean?
4 to 6 first.
Yeah, going up to 8 still seems like a high, thinking back on something, not that every case is
Yeah, I like that
precedent, but
bunch, yeah.
I feel that once you get above 6, it does start to become, it's a lot of car, and especially with a couple for personal use, knowing that there's the
Yeah,
truck
okay.
as well, I think that,
All right.
much like the electrician house we had a while back, of it can
Yeah.
start to give the
Oh, yeah.
appearance of too many, I think, again, not to pull too much precedent, but I thought Mr. Perkins made a really good point on that case, and it's kind of been something that's stuck with me since. You just don't want to give the general appearance of too much out there in a residential neighborhood, in my opinion.
Okay.
That and that 1 or 2 times that someone doesn't come to pick it up,
Exactly.
the grace number, so. And if they're performance cars, he's not gonna put them in the back in the water.
Right. And we know the curbside beats go up front. So if nobody else has anything, we'll give you another chance to kind of speak if there's anything else you'd like to add. And then otherwise, we'll start to move into deliberative and start to discuss it just amongst ourselves. So is there anything else you'd like to add at this moment?
No, thank you. I believe I've said everything I need to, and I appreciate your input.
Thank you. So with that, if anybody would like to make a motion to go into deliberative.
Make the motion to go into deliberative session.
Second.
Hold on one moment. Mr. Donlin was,
Yeah, may I just ask a general question to the board prior to going into
Yes.
deliberate? Is this something that we would have the ability to put some sort of like a sunset on?
Yeah.
Oh, it's already sunsetted because it's a special exception.
Sunset anyway.
yeah, so sorry, I just heard it from both ends. As it's a special exception, it would naturally come with a sunset, because the special exception is just for,
No, could we say something like, and if this is only, it's only granted for X amount of years, not when he sells the property?
Well, see, it's a special exception is to him.
To nobody
Only.
else.
I
And-
realize that,
but
that's why it
not-
was a question, not a statement.
Okay, okay.
so I understand. So I'm gonna defer to Mr. Perkins on this, even though he sat out. Typically, how would, and I am the king of the sunset clause, which is surprising, but how would, to Mr. Donlin's point, would we want to, have we put any restrictions on when a special exemption would expire? Or would it just come with as the business evolves?
I'm gonna bounce this over to Mr. Mackey.
But you did, Mr.
I can
Donald.
answer it if you like,
Around the block
Mr.
here.
Mackey.
It's a
but
fair
I
question.
thought
No,
this is
it
too
is.
comical to let go.
My understanding of it would be, unlike a variance that runs with the land, special exception is, as was pointed out, is unique to the individual that applies for it. So if that individual leaves and somebody else wants to come in and do that, they still have to come back to the board and show that they're not exceeding 25%, blah, 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 all the stuff that goes with a special exception. So I think once he's gone, the special exception goes away, unlike a variance would run with the land.
I think what I got from Mr. Donald, thank you, Mr. Mackey, is that he wanted to know if we could just put a time limit on this, 5 years or
Anyways.
nothing. Am I correct, Mr.
Yes,
Donlin?
exactly.
And I think what the special exception is asking for here is that granting is indefinite until his abandonment.
Right, and we do not have the ability to alter that.
There's not a need to do it. I think once he expires or sells the
That
piece,
sounded
or
really
I don't know, yeah, it's been a long,
We could start with sell and then.
hence my
expire.
deferring to Mr. Mackey, but, no, if someone's asking for this and they're going to remain on the parcel, there's no need to take it back or put a time limit or a performance limit on it.
Very well.
No, I guess, and you don't have to answer. I guess my question is, do you have any concerns with it going past 5 years, or?
I do, because if this is the intention for this to be a primary means of income, I can appreciate and empathize with the position of a low overhead at initial startup, but this is a residential neighborhood on a busy road, and it's not a commercial lot. So in 4 or 5 years from now, if this business has taken off, this should be on a commercial lot. So we could empathize and grant him this special exemption to kickstart the business, but there's no reason why this should be here in 15 years if it's his primary means of income.
I think to that.
Not a hobby anymore.
No, the way I would think of that is, since we've put in the limit of 6, if it does start to outgrow that, to your point, it would have to go to a commercial lot, because he's always going to be limited with the 6 cars to be able to use for the business without having to come back for another request. So I think that would almost resolve itself, that if the success comes as it should, that basically is going to be forced outside of the property, and I don't want, unfortunately, if it doesn't, you'd have to
could.
assume that it probably expires itself as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Donald's point is almost like giving it seed money, and if it doesn't grow, then it dies.
You don't have to invest a couple $100,000 to get going to see if it works. If it starts working, then move on.
Well, as I recall, part of his testimony was that if this goes too big, he's going to find a commercial property and go there and take the business away from the land.
I understand that, yes.
Okay.
The best laid intentions, right?
Sorry. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there's 4 neighbors on record here. Written testimony here says he spoke to them and they confirmed their support. Do we have something from them to confirm that, or do we take this written testimony as their true word for the others?
It's written in as legal testimony. With that said, I would say make your own decision. Does it pass your smell test, yes or no? There was not necessarily anybody in favor tonight. Doesn't mean that nobody is in favor, but also nobody in opposition.
Yeah.
So to me,
That's
I
where I
would
was
just.
going, because if there was a case for a hearing, somebody could claim they weren't heard or they didn't submit their testimony here, and the only evidence we do have is a letter from him saying he spoke to the neighbors.
Right, and the abutters were also given their 10 days notice and the notice to come to speak in favor or against. So to that, if somebody misses, that goes with any meeting. If anybody misses a meeting, they could always just complain, or put in their, I don't want to say complain, it's not the right word. They could, put in their appeal to, for a rehearing.
Sounds good.
But I think that's a good point. And then, Mr. Tripp, do you have one before we go back to that deliberative?
I just had, I keep wrestling with this square footage and the display and the working area and the storage area. Because if you look at,
Hold on, I'm sorry to interrupt. Are we going to ask a question to Mr. Stoll, or is this something we could discuss in deliberative? Because I feel like
that's
we've kinda
something we
gone
can
into-
discuss in
I feel like
deliberative.
we've
Thank
kinda
you.
gone deliberative side.
Okay.
So with that, I will let you kick it off once we get there. So would anybody like to make a motion to go to deliberative?
I made the motion to go into deliberative session.
Burgess?
And I second it again.
We have Mr. Tripp, and now, Mr. Tripp, I will let me know what's on your mind.
Okay, well, Ms. Moran made the statement that to get a, what is it called, a dealer's license, you have to have at least 750 square feet of space in the building, and the business.
Yes.
And it appears that this is met by the 390 square feet for the maintenance area and the unspecified square footage for the display and the unspecified square footage for the storage. But then we have the dilemma of the home business use will be conducted within the residential structure or other existing structure and will not exceed 25% of the finished living area, which is going to be about 400 square feet. So my question is, what is considered the home business dimensions? Does it include the storage, the maintenance, and the display so that it will exceed 750 square feet? But is it less than 400 square feet so that it meets the requirement of the ordinance?
So, my opinion is we give them either a yes or no. They take our yes or no and they bring it to the next person. They see our yes or no with, the stipulations and the rules, and then they decide from there too.
The next person would be,
The
The
state
state.
would be giving.
Okay,
And
thank
they
you.
work with Mr. Mackey, so.
all right. Well, that answers my question. Thank you.
I have a question. Can I ask Mr. Mackey the question?
You couldn't do that when we were outside deliberative? What's your question? You can
Well,
ask me.
this is because he said something earlier. Didn't you said that for the business, the automotive business type of thing,
Could you speak in the microphone,
did-
please?
750 square feet, right?
I said that.
That
not
was,
Mr.
that was
Mackey.
Crystal
Okay,
for the Realtor license, or for the
The dealer
dealer license, sorry.
okay. So we're in a dilemma here because the 750
But like
square
I
feet
just-
is bigger than the,
Told Mr. Tripp, we give our answer for ourselves, he takes that paper to the next person, and then they see what we said yes to, and they go from there.
Yeah, it's not that it can't exceed the, I guess I'm unsure of the dilemma, because it's not that it can't exceed the 750, it's that they would have to have 750. So if we're spending all of our focus on the fact that it's over 750,
yeah,
I think we're missing the point.
yep.
So,
And on the,
In other words, that's a minimum.
yes.
Okay.
I know, not to help anyone's case, but for the parts storage, they're so readily available, and nobody wants to sit on an $800, $1,200 motor. So I can't imagine he's gonna line the back of his property with them. And lots of things have cores, so he wants to send it back because he wants his money, I imagine.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's that much property behind the.
No, not at all.
actually,
That's,
so.
he's very
Got a
much
truck
like,
and a trailer, I mean, that's about it.
he's landlocked, so there's not much more that can be done, just,
Excuse me.
No, and we know, this is within your realm of expertise, so I appreciate all of this. You know a little bit about this.
just
Mr. Dahlman, how are your thoughts on this one before we go into structure on the motion? I understand your concern over the sunset as somebody who likes to push for it, but my opinion is, I do think it resolves itself without it. I think this is one of the few that, again, if he succeeds, you know, it goes off the property and then the business is no longer there. It doesn't succeed, you know, unfortunately, they probably pivot and turn to something else. So I don't necessarily see the need of it, but I understand the concern of it, and that if it does start to grow, I agree with you that it would need to go off the property, and I think that's kind of, I like the long-term question that you asked earlier. I thought that was a really good one for this, but I guess that was my long lead to anything else that you may have.
I mean, I agree, but you know, that at face value, I would agree with that too. But that's where it would end, because you know that it's, even a reasonable human with good intentions, there's no way to manage something like that efficiently or effectively. It's just impossible. There always will be like I got a lead on 4 cars from Japan and I got a shipment in or whatever, and it might only be a week, but then that week turns into a month, and then before you know it, there's like 50 cars. I mean, that's a gross exaggeration,
understand
but
where
you know
you're
what I'm saying?
And that came up recently. That came, kind of the case that I had where I referenced the 10 cars, and I think it goes to a point that we usually make that unfortunately we can't lock in too much, but we have to rely on the community at that point. If they start to see that it starts to become a constant, you know,
Sure,
to that
then you
point, there's
start
a
getting
few day
back into the,
overlap. Yeah,
you start getting into like the who polices it, right? And it's like, well, then your community polices it and stuff, and it's like, okay, so the same people that had to listen to gackety-gack of an impact gun all day long as the same people that have to call the cops or however they have what, you know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
you're getting into a sticky situation here. Like, this is Hampstead Road by Depot Crossing. This isn't, you know, Ford Extension or something. You know what I mean?
No, and I agree with that, and I guess the way I'd look at it is if we set the rule at 6, you know, it's just like saying that you can't drink it, you know, you can't drive after however many drinks. People still make the decision, but the rule is then the rule, and if they exceed what we put in for the 6, it starts to put the
Right, and you
special
lose your
exception at
driver's
risk.
license to that analogy.
Right, now here you would potentially start to lose your special exception because now you've started to abuse it.
Fair enough.
With that, you know, we've kind of gone through it. I do thank everybody. We've done sticking with this fact for it being a special exception over the variance. With that, unless anybody has anything to add at this point, I think we can start to structure a motion. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to chime in with in that time?
Nope, I'm good.
Can we start with the simple one for wording, hours of operation?
Yeah, so the hours of operation that were discussed was Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then appointment only on Saturdays and Sundays.
I would probably put an hourly stipulation on that as well.
Like do a 8 to 5 for the appointment only as well?
Yeah.
So put 8 AM to 5 PM,
5
7
PM.
days a week?
Yep, Saturday, and Sunday by appointment only.
Okay,
And I think that we'd also want to put in that there will only be 6 cars for business use at any time. Or 6, I want to say just narrow it to cars, 6 vehicles, 6, is there an all-encompassing word that we could use at a time?
only 6 non-registered to that address allowed at a time?
I'm just trying to think of something that, I don't want to say car, and then we start to get to the loophole of it's a car versus a motorcycle, car versus a
Right.
truck, just vehicle.
Just say
motor
no
vehicle,
more than
6 motor
8 vehicles on the property at any given time, or something like that.
It would stick to the vehicles that are intended for sale.
Yeah,
That's just
for the,
Yeah.
I think with that one, we'll go with the 6 vehicle, motor vehicles for business use.
Oh, that's perfect, I think, only 6, sorry.
And then with that, we also have, subject to obtaining all states and town permits and inspections. We also have the sign limited to no more than 3 square feet, which we see on our proposal, not to be internally illuminated. Is there anything else that we think we need to add to this at this time?
Well, to have a dealer's license, the letters have to be 10 inches, so,
That would be part of the state and town
yeah.
town
sorry.
permit, so just something to keep in mind, as a word of advice, that the letters must be no larger than 10 inches or
At minimum 10
at minimum
in.
10 inches, so hopefully saying that aloud gets to the right person and they hear that.
Is it
Do
3
we
square
want
feet or
to
9?
specify,
I thought it was a 3 by 3.
Excuse me, is the sign limit 3 by,
It's 3 square feet.
it is 3 square?
Typically, and I believe with the state requirement, if the town says not allowed, then they will waive that part of the requirement. It's been my experience, so.
You get more with honey than vinegar, you just smell.
so just basically.
Yeah, and it looks like a 2 by 3 being proposed as well, so being that we have that in the proposal for the record, I think.
I wouldn't know what 3 square feet was if you gave me options.
3 by 3 by 3.
So we're going to say the signage will be per town regulations?
Yeah, but I think that's what we have in here is the exact language, that it's limited no more than 3 square feet, and not to be internally illuminated, already prepared on the.
Isn't it easier just to say per town
We
regulations?
already have it.
We already have it. But what if it's wrong? Is it right or wrong, Bob?
He just confirmed it was correct.
Per the special exception, an applicant is allowed 1 sign up to 3 square feet for home occupation, special exception.
So essentially, though you're trying to depict, Mr. Tripp is trying to depict that it's per town ordinance, the town ordinance is specified here. Anyway.
Fine.
Do you want me to put in rule number 5, whatever Mr. Tripp says?
No, you know what?
Just, hey, I
Do
will-
whatever you want.
I will,
Could I address the hours of operation? Is it possible to push the hours of operation from 9 to 6 instead of 8 to 4:30 or 8 to 5, just in case people would want to come after their normal work hours to buy a vehicle?
Do have, as we are in deliberative, we will come out to entertain that in a moment.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything else that we'd like to add to the record at this time? All right, so with that, would anybody like to make a motion to come out of deliberative?
I'll make the motion to come out of deliberative session.
We have Mr. Burgess on the record. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second from Ms. Moran. We are now out of deliberative session. As we read through the structure of the motion, I am going to return to the hours of operation. So Ms. Moran, I'd like you to start to read through and see if everybody agrees.
Were you gonna get his
Well, aren't you gonna
information?
talk?
That's for 9 to 6, so then after she reads it, we'll kick it over and ask. Do you
Oh,
want
so
me to
read it as written or just
Should we
change
ask
it?
now, or?
Yeah, I would get it cleared now and.
So we discussed the 8 to 4:30. I may have heard through the grapevine that you may be more interested in a 9 to 6. Would those hours work better for you?
Please and thank you, yes. 9 to 6 would be ideal.
And then he misses the school buses and all that
Yeah,
for sure
would
too,
work better
just,
overall.
I suppose for the record, because we've been caught in this before where we come out of deliberative and we come back in, but it's just dawning on me, we could, in the future, you could ask the board for an exception to discuss with the applicant certain criteria, get the motion from the board approval, and then go and ask the question and continue on with the deliberation. So just a note for anybody in the futures.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins.
I do have to write this, so I'll read the wrong one. Okay.
All right, so Ms. Moran, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 23-131, Adam M. Stowell, to grant a special exception as provided in Article 6, Section 165-48.A.1 of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to operate a small automobile service and sales facility out of the detached garage located on the property at 241 Hampstead Road, parcel ID 10054, zoned LDR, as presented with the following conditions. We have 4. 1, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections. 2, hours of operation are to be Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. by appointment only. Sign limited to no more than 3 square feet and not to be internally illuminated. 4, only 6 motor vehicles for business purpose use to be out on the property at one time. And that concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second, please.
Got a second from Mr. Burgess. Thank you, Ms. Moran. With that, I will now kick this into the finding of fact. The finding of facts for case 23-131. The board will also include all facts found in the meeting minutes for the application and will incorporate all meeting minutes into the facts and decisions. With that said, the board found that the property is located in the low-density residential zone. The applicant is requesting approval to operate a small automotive service and sales facility out of the existing detached garage. The property is 0.62 acres. The state of New Hampshire DMV retail dealer's license will be required. State regulations must be followed with regard to waste, oil, accidental spills, etc. Only 6 cars for business use will be allowed on the property at a time, and the hours of operation will be Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, and also 9 to 6 on Saturdays and Sundays by appointment only. Does anybody have anything to amend or add to the finding of fact?
No, thank you.
All right, with that, we will start to take this to a vote. Before we go there, though, just one last reminder that we are voting on a special exception, not a variance, so please craft your vote accordingly when giving a reason. So with that said, I will start off with Mr. Burgess.
Mr. Burgess says yes.
I have a yes from Mr. Burgess and Ms. Moran.
I vote yes as well.
Yes from Ms. Moran. Mr. Tripp.
I vote yes.
Mr. Donlin.
Yes.
And the chair will make it unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Stowell. You have, your special exemption has been approved. We wish you the best luck. Prior to moving forward, that you do have 30 days allowed for anybody who feels aggrieved to make an appeal to the board for a rehearing. After that, all alternatives would be to Superior Court. So best of luck in 30 days from now.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate your decision.
Thank you. And that will conclude my case, so I can hit the gavel for Mr. Perkins.
All right, next up, we've got case number 23-132, and this is Kenneth and Tunde Euring.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Just maybe a brief explanation,
Okay.
just to help clarify for the board. So what this is a request for an extension of a variance that the board granted 2 years ago. By state statute, a variance must be exercised within 2 years. For various reasons that the applicant will explain, they're looking to extend that. The paperwork did come in just prior to the expiration date, so rather than were to have expired, meaning it went over the expiration date, they would be back with a whole new case. But because it got submitted just prior to the 2-year expiration, they're simply asking for an extension.
Very good. Thank you for Mr. Mackey for that clarity, and Ms. Euring, welcome back. Seems hard to believe it's been 2 years, but
Yes.
go ahead and present your request.
Sure. I have a letter that I submitted. Do I read that, or do I just give
The
a
letter
brief
is,
overview?
I have noted it, that's from October 5th, 2023, correct?
Yes, sir.
And all the board has that letter?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, all right, very good. Feel free to elaborate beyond that if you'd like. I think your points are made as far as I'm concerned, but you're welcome.
Yeah, it was a very hectic 2 years. We had COVID. We tried for the longest time to get an engineering team to come and survey our property as is required to go before the planning board. We finally, as listed in this letter, we finally found someone back in April. I had a commitment that they would start working on that within a few weeks. That got put off, it got put off, it got put off. The principal owner of that company was very ill. I finally got another engineering company, maybe 6 weeks ago, to say that they would help me out. And they have surveyed the property. I have a copy of the survey. We're ready to do the minor site plan and move forward. You know, we're very anxious to do that.
Yeah, it's been a 2-year delay, so I'm sure that's kind of a thorn in your side, correct?
Well, it's, you know, there's things that came up and, you know, it's justifiable, and it's longer than I would have liked, yes, but
The statute allows you a 2-year extension. I know that's not what you're looking for here, but
I'm following the advice of Mr. Mackey. You know,
Fair.
we are gonna jump on this right away, and
sure.
unless there's any issues with the planning board, you know, we intend to move forward quickly.
Hey, Mr. Mackey, remind me, if once he's engaged with the planning board, does he essentially meet that standard?
Yeah, I mean, typically, once there's a formal submission, that would stop the clock, so to speak.
Okay. Well, if you're confident that you can get it done in a year, I will stick with the year, but just wanted to let you know.
May I
that
clarify that,
typic-
sir? Because this is new for me. I just want to make sure you're raising a point, and I want to make sure that I understand it and I don't put myself in a corner.
Yep. Again, if you think you'll pull it off in a year and that's all you would like is that 1 year per statute, we'll give you the year, or we can vote on it.
Yeah,
Well,
or if I may.
If I understand.
It doesn't have, it says to grant a variance extension for, and then their names as allowed per state statute.
which is the 2 years. So I think if they come before requesting the 1, we would want to, correct that in the motion, because that's what they're asking for. I'm sorry.
Hiring.
So what Mr. Perkins was going with is, you have rights to 2 years, just in case, God forbid, anything like this happens again. You would be protected. You wouldn't have to come back before us in a year and then ask for another exception. We understand that you want to try to go before as soon as possible. Personally, I would always like to have the extra time built in, but I think Mr. Perkins' point, whatever.
I would not be adverse to having a 2-year extension. I didn't want to ask for what might have appeared to be an exorbitant amount of time. We are very sincere about doing this. We have not delayed this on our own. It's my understanding that once the project begins, that the clock stops.
Yep.
And that we can exceed that 1 year. We don't have to finalize and be done with the work. We just have to continuously be working on the project. And if that's the case, and we can get it through the planning board in a year, which I don't see there to be any issues with that, but if this board would be willing to grant us a 2-year extension, I would more than welcome that, because it would, in the case that something comes up and we get delayed for whatever reasons, I wouldn't have to come back here again in a year.
Just for the board's reflection, Mr. Mackey, am I correct that the applicants get 1 extension? Am I correct by statute?
Well, the language basically says that the variance is good for 2 years unless extended for good cause by the zoning board, so it really doesn't specify, it just says for good cause.
Yeah, okay. All right, very good, thank you. Anybody wish to, you're all set, Mr. Euring, as far as your
Yes, sir.
comments? Okay. This is a board matter, so we won't take public input on this. If anybody would like to make a motion, go in deliberative real quick, and then we'll.
So
start
moved.
the Motion, thank you, Mr. Tripp. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Mr. Burgess has a second. All right, so we have to the board secretary's point, the motion to structure, the structured motion would be to give the, grant the variance extension per state statute, which is 2 years. We'll leave it at that. That's my recommendation, and not try to change that. Are there any structures or conditions to any of this that anyone would like to put on this motion? Mr. Burgess, anything? Mr. Corbett, you all set?
I believe like you did, I thought there was only one more extension. I thought it was something that came out in the legislature
All right, very
not
good.
too long ago, but
Mrs. Moran, anything from you on this?
I have nothing.
Mr. Tripp, you all set?
I'm all set.
All right, very good. Take a motion, come out of deliberation,
So moved.
please.
I'll
Mr.
second.
Tripp, Mr. Burgess has a second. Thank you both. All in favor of coming out of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 23-132 to grant a variance extension for Kenneth and Tundi I. Ring, 4 Lennox Road, parcel ID 32033, as allowed per state statute. That concludes the reading of the motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
Nope.
All right, that motion's on the floor. Real quick on a finding of fact is that the applicant has submitted in a timely manner the application for extension, period. Any additions or addendums to the finding of fact from the board?
No, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no gestures there. All in favor of moving this motion for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Mr. Corbett
I vote yes.
and Mrs. Moran,
Chair, I vote yes.
Burgess,
I'm going to vote yes.
Mr. Tripp,
I'm gonna vote yes.
and the chair will make it unanimous. Very good. Congratulations, Mr. Euring. You're all set.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for bringing up the fact that I could have 2 years and you didn't make my 1-year request part of the motion. I'd also like to thank the people in the Code Enforcement Department. They have been awesome over the past 2 years with help and their services. They're top notch.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Other business, we have no other business and no correspondence. We have approval of minutes from October 5th. Did everyone get ample time to review those minutes, and are
They
they,
can amended them.
you amended? Okay, very good. All set on those minutes, everyone down on the left? Very good, and all right?
I wasn't here.
Okay, very good. So all in favor of, I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve as amended.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Second by Mr. Donlin. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Very good, those minutes,
Do we have abstentions?
if you'd like.
Well, I wasn't here either, so.
Okay, so we'll consider that you've abstained from this, all right? Good
You
enough.
also,
Mr. Tripp voted present.
I heard no objections to the approval as amended, so we're good with that?
You're good.
All right, good enough. Any cases next?
Seconded on that case for hearing.
God, we were going so lightning
On this
fast, I
one?
forgot.
I thought it was you.
I got,
Corbett, second the
yeah, I
motion.
second.
Huh?
I seconded.
I thought you seconded. I wasn't sure.
Okay.
You guys are mumbling.
Never.
All right. Any cases?
Nothing came in for the first meeting in November, so you get the night off.
yay.
Right.
How did we get to November already?
And all, well,
No clue.
It's gonna be January. Well, you know, as soon as Halloween comes, the year is over.
Okay, well, good enough. If
I
there's-
make a motion to adjourn.
If there's no other business, we can take
I'll
that
second that
motion
motion.
from Mr. Dietzel, seconded by Mr. Burgess. If there is any other business, you can, this is your time to put it in, or we're going to close the meeting.
So moved. In the words of Mr. Tripp.
All right, good enough. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're done. Have a good evening, everybody.
It was a lovely evening.